Top 15 current WWE rumors that are circulating behind the curtain.
If you are brand new to our channel, we invite you to take a moment to subscribe. Just click on the lit red button as well as the gray bell. Why the bell? Well, it will let you know every time we post a new video.
15.
WifeCarrying. WifeCarrying might sound like a rather confusing event, but it really isn't. In fact, the whole thing is pretty simple, and just like it sounds. A bunch of guys carrying a woman on their back, and racing against each other through all sorts of different obstacles. It doesn't actually have to be their wife, but you have to admit that wife-carrying sounds better than woman-carrying. The first wife-carrying championship was held in Finland in 1992. A North American championship was started in 1999. So you know, if you are a dude, and you like carrying chicks, or if you are a chick that likes to be carried, then maybe you have a future in this sport.
14.
Bo-Taoshi. This sport is just plain crazy. Bo-Taoshi is Japanese for pole pull down, and is pretty much the whole point of the game, to pull down the other team's pole. This might sound like it isn't all that exciting, but then I probably should mention each team has 150 people on it, with 75 attackers and 75 defenders. So basically, everyone just totally charges into each other, and tries to tear down the other team's pole, while beating the living daylights out.
13.
Extreme ironing. Yeah, you heard me. Extreme ironing is a sport. As you can read on their Facebook page, Extreme Ironing was founded in the city of Leicester, UK, in 1997 by Phil Shaw. The sport combines the thrills of an extreme sport with the satisfaction of a well-pressed shirt. I wish there was a lot I could add to that description, but there really isn't. The point of this entire sport is that somebody does some sort of extreme sport, like mountain climbing, or something of that nature, while ironing. No, you are not missing anything. You are totally right. That is incredibly stupid. But you know what? All sorts of really stupid things have happened that have become quite popular, so why should extreme ironing be any different? 12. Cheeserolling. In some of these sports, it feels like I am losing IQ points while describing it, and this one is pretty much at the top of the list. Every year in Gloucester, England, tourists and locals alike roll a huge double Gloucester cheese down a hill, and run after it to catch it. The good news is, if you win, there's a prize. So you're not running after cheese for nothing. Surprisingly, there's always a few injuries that come from running down the hill too quickly. So if you're thinking of participating, take precaution.
11.
Bunny jumping. Bunny jumping is probably the most ridiculous sport you could possibly imagine, so there is no way it could possibly be real. Funny enough, it's real and we're just as baffled as you are. Just like many other sports on this list, it's exactly what it sounds like. This popular Swedish sport consists of trained bunnies that jump over obstacles. This means there are people who are taking the time to train their rabbits. As if that's not ridiculous enough, this sport actually started in the 1500s. Things must have been really boring and Sweden back then.
10.
Underwater hockey. What could be more fun than playing hockey underwater? As ridiculous as it sounds, some might find this appealing. Funny enough, the oddest part about this sport is that there are actual referees. We're just wondering who's bored enough to actually referee underwater hockey? Aside from being a good swimming, let's just hope these players and referee have the lung capacity for it.
9.
Reason for Paige not being used on Raw despite return backstage. It seems as though Paige hasn't even returned on screen yet, though she's already in the doghouse. Paige was spotted by numerous fans prior to the Monday show, and it was expected that she would be added to Team Raw as the fifth and final member. However, that wasn't the case as Bayley made the team, leading to lots of speculation as to why such a call was made. It appears as though Paige leaking her return was a big reason. The WWE officials were said to be furious at the fact that the 25-year-old posted a picture of herself backstage alongside Alicia Fox. With the element of surprise out the window, the WWE decided against her return. It remains to be seen when she'll be brought back on screen.
8.
8. Bellyflopping. I used to live in what used to be a popular spring break town in Florida, where there were all sorts of bars that would have things like wet t-shirt competitions, bikini competitions, and yes, even belly flop competitions. As dumb as it is watching it, when you're sitting around buzzed in a really cheesy bar in Florida, it boggles the mind to think that people might actually compete in a belly flopping competition for sport. This is one sport that you don't have to be in shape for, since often the biggest splash is made by the biggest belly. Who wants to see a skinny guy do a belly flop? I would say that no one does, but there are a lot of sports here I would think that no one wanted to see.
7.
7. Buzkashi. This one might top them all, at least for being the most bizarre. Believe it or not, Buzkashi is the national sport of Afghanistan, and even though it's not as popular as it used to be, it is played all over South Asia. The game involves a group of men on horses trying to place the carcass of a goat in a goal. So you see, it is kind of like hockey or soccer, except for the fact that instead of using a ball or a puck, you are actually using a dead goat. It's even more barbaric to think of a bunch of kids playing this game.
6.
6. Ferret Legging. Some of these things don't sound a whole lot like actual sports, but then again, what else could you possibly call them? Ferret legging is just one of those puzzling activities. The point of this sport is that you put a couple of ferrets down your pants without wearing any underwear, and then you keep it there for as long as you possibly can. The world record for doing this is over 5 hours. Pretty cool, right? We doubt that. This sport was made popular in England, but seems to have pretty much died out at this point. Who knows, maybe this article will inspire you to introduce it to your city. All you need are a few ferrets and pants.
5.
5. Toe wrestling. Toe wrestling is yet another totally odd sport that originated in England and is basically like a thumb war, except for the fact that you use your toes instead, which is pretty gross. It's considered good manners to take off your opponent's shoes and socks before you start the match. Word is that toe wrestling was started by a few English guys, in large part because it's hard for anyone in England to be a world champion in anything, so they figured if they started a totally obscure sport, they wouldn't have to worry about that. Of course, in a very short period of time, some guy from Canada came over and beat the English guys and took away the world championship. That would be really sad if it...
4.
4. Mountain unicycling. There are really only two kinds of people in this world, those who think that being able to ride a unicycle is cool, and those that think that people that ride unicycles are about the biggest losers that ever existed in the world. Actually, that wasn't correct. There is another kind of person too, the kind that thinks riding a unicycle up and down a mountain is a good idea. This seems like less of a sport, and more like an accident waiting to happen.
3.
3. Kite tubing. As you may have noticed, most of the sports on this list are one of two things. They're either ridiculously stupid, or just rather dangerous. Kite tubing definitely falls under the latter category. In fact, it was so dangerous that people died and got injured trying to do it. Kite tubes were recalled, and it's no longer a sport. The bigger question is, how did this even happen in the first place? How did this ever seem like a good idea to anyone? The point is, you are doing something similar to water skiing, except that you are flying through the air on a kite, which you also have pretty much no ability to control. What could possibly go wrong?
2.
2. Shin kicking. I wonder how people ever decide that they want to become involved in a shin kicking competition. In what way would that ever be valuable or rewarding to anyone? This is yet another totally odd sport that originated in England. The point of the sport, if there actually is one, is to just grab your opponent by the collar and keep kicking him in the shin until he falls to the ground. To be good at the sport, you need to have a good amount of agility and the ability to endure a lot of pain. But let's be honest, why would you ever want to be good at the sport in the first place? How would you even practice? Why would you even want to practice? So many questions, so few shin kickers to answer them.
1.
1. Quidditch. Quidditch was originally a game that was made up by J.K. Rowling for the Harry Potter books. So of course, fans of these books are kind of rabid and sometimes more than a little insane, so they actually turned the game into something real. The sport was started at Middlebury College in Vermont in 2005, and since then has had world championship competitions, and has also had 10 different versions of rulebooks. Although it's mostly played in colleges, it is now played in many different countries all over the world. This goes to show you that it's actually possible to get a nerd to play sports, but the sport is still going to be something that is super weird and uses broomsticks.
Yeah.